The Native American name for the Little Spokane River was Sanahamana, River of the Ocean Trout. Historians say that in the early days there were 4 distinct salmon runs up this river each year. Possibly 2 of them were steelhead. They say that the mouth of the Little Spokane, where it runs into the Big Spokane, would choke from bank to bank with fish. When Washington Water Power built a dam below Long Lake, the salmon runs ended. Old-timers would take salmon out of Deep Creek and Dragoon Creek with pitchforks. The Native Americans were all on reservations when Chattaroy was a village. They would come through the area from Inchelium to the county courthouse or for gatherings in Spokane. They would camp along the way right in the area of the Chattaroy Valley and meadows. During midsummer, they would arrive with their wagons, set up big racks which were tent-shaped, and they would fish. They would hang their salmon to dry overnight, or they would build fires to smoke them. Later, when stores appeared in the village, they would buy or trade at the stores. Early settlers farmed the area and began building the village of Chattaroy. The land was beautiful and untouched. In 1872, the first post office was founded in our area. It was named Kidd. It wasn't located here in Chattaroy. It was located about a mile away at the mouth of Dragoon Creek and the Little Spokane River. In 1882 or 1883, it was moved to Chattaroy and located on the land between the highway and the river on the south side of the road. It was located in the same building as a general store. In 1889, the name was changed from Kidd to Chattaroy because of another town named Kidd in Montana. No one is certain where the name Chattaroy originated. Jim Hill Great Northern Railroad arrived in the newly created township of Hilliard in 1891. The railroad was very important. Trains made expansion and transportation of people and supplies to the northern villages of Chattaroy, Milan, and Elk possible. Each community had their own depot. The Chattaroy Depot was located on the south hill of Chattaroy, near the current Jim Hill Road. It was the Great Northern Depot, but referred to by the locals as the Jim Hill Depot. Early Chattaroy was valued for the vast resources of virgin timber. The lumber was used for building the community and rebuilding Spokane after the fire of August 6, 1889. The need for lumber was great as the homesteaders and settlers moved into all the area north of Spokane. To satisfy this need, there was a sawmill about every 5 miles in every direction. Taking the sawmills to the timber was the solution. Lumber would be transported to Spokane by wagon with a team of 2 horses or on bobsleds in the snow, and by train. Logs were decked out on the riverbank to be moved downstream to a sawmill by a river drive. This happened during spring high water. The bulk of the heavy logging occurred between 1885 and 1915. Further cuttings supplied railroad ties and cordwood until about 1925. The people who lived in the little town spent time each day on the street, meeting and talking. People who lived in the farms on the outskirts of the area spoke of coming to town, downtown Chattaroy. The bustling downtown area grew. Businesses sprouted up to meet the people's needs. This even included a doctor. Mail was not delivered on rural routes, so you walked, rode your horse, or traveled in your buggy to get to the post office to get your mail, or to get to the store to get your supplies. Your supplies were all found at the general store, which was called the merchandise store. This too was a gathering place. The next few pictures show some of these businesses and the wares they supplied the community. The Chattaroy Hotel was one of the earlier buildings in Chattaroy. The picture of the hotel was taken in 1890. The building next door was the Kidd Post Office. Travelers have always needed a safe and comfortable place to stay. The meat market was nearby. And of course, there would be a blacksmith shop, a livery stable, and a saloon. In the early days, farm animals were important to the people of the Chattaroy community. At some point in time, there were no herd laws. Dairies could let their cows graze where they wished. It was up to you to fence your land to keep them out of your garden. You would also see sheep and cattle drives coming through town. This would have been exciting. The town was growing. This picture shows a great view of the town, the train, in the sunshine. The local church was organized in September of 1903. Services were held in the early school building and the lodge hall. The current church building was erected in 1908. Additions were made to that building, but the steeple remains the same. The church was an important gathering place, whether you attended or not. It was another sign of a growing community becoming a small town. The little school, seen at the top of this picture to the far right, is in the same spot as the current elementary school. The smoke comes from a sawmill. Another good picture of the school on the hill. Actually, the first schoolhouse in Chattaroy dated between 1885 and 1889. It was located across the street and slightly west of the current post office. The land was donated, as were the materials and labor. The community built the building and all of the furniture. The second school was built in 1889, as seen in this picture, at the site of the present Chattaroy Elementary School. This school housed the local students for 10 years, but in 1899 a wing was added to the wood structure to meet the needs of the growing community. The two-story white brick school building was built in 1912 and opened for school that fall. It had 4 large rooms, steam heat, an air circulation system, and indoor plumbing. A gymnasium was added in 1923. Quite a sight. On a spring day in 1935, a fire in the boiler was lit to warm the building for the students. Something went terribly wrong. No one knows exactly what happened, but the fire quickly moved up to the wooden shingle roof. Nothing could be done to stop it. Students were safe, and a few books and a few school items were saved. Teaching was moved to the church. The old blacksmith store, which was a warehouse at that time, and the high school was moved to Milan. The same summer, they began work on the new brick building, the red one, the old building we call it, that was finished in 1936. An addition to the red brick building was added in the early 1950s to increase the size and meet the needs of the growing town of Chattaroy. New additions were added in 1988 and 1994 to continue to meet the educational needs of the growing community. The people of Chattaroy and the Riverside School District have always been very proud and supportive of their schools. The first road in Chattaroy came north from Colbert straight to the Chattaroy Cemetery. The road turned west and came under the train trestle, past a little gray building tucked into the hillside, which was the town hall, and on past the red store. This was originally the Kalispell Military Trail and went north to Milan, Elk, and Camden. Looking east, it continued through town, over the bridge, and up the hill to the school. In this picture, you can see the corner we still use to get to CES. Here, we see the view looking west. Note the church steeple on the right. In 1920, they put in what was known as State Highway. It's a beautiful view going past that old store, heading north to Milan and Elk. In 1957, they put in the wider 2-lane on the same bed that the current 4-lane sits. There's the view looking south. And the view looking north. Note the old bridge and the old road to the right. And the current 4-lane was finished in 1991. As with any community, there was time for fun. They had lodge halls for fraternal societies. This picture shows members in costume. Looks like they were having a great deal of fun. Baseball games occurred every Sunday during the summer. People attended these with enthusiasm. Each village or community and town had a baseball team. And fun continued. The football team in this photo shows the school connection with sports. Riverside School District has always competed. We can be proud of our community.